Hello and welcome to Beyond Conflict. I'm your host Shahid Akhtar. In the last episode we had talked about how 7C's approach can help resolve conflicts in your life which impact you directly or indirectly. Today we are going to be talking about someone very special, and that very special person is you. Yes, you. We are going to be talking about personal conflicts that you face in your life, and don't mind if it gets too close for comfort. Let me ask you a rhetorical question first. It's rhetorical because we know the answer in any case. And the question is this: did you ever have a conflict in your life? If your answer is no, then congratulations. You have just resigned from the human race. You may be an angel or you may be some superhuman being. So this program is not about that category of people. You may as well turn off the computer or TV or your iPhone that you're watching this program on, if that is the case, and go back to playing harp. But if you're like us, like everybody else, who is just a mortal human being, then chances are that you have had conflicts in your life. Doesn't matter in what role. Now the intensity and the nature of that conflict may be different, but there is no way that an ordinary human being can avoid conflict in their lives. Let us play a little game, because what we are trying to do is take that personal conflict of yours and see how you can actually benefit from this approach of 7C. So let's play that game. Think of a conflict that's going on in your life. Think of it in a way, in a role that you play. It doesn't matter as what. It could be a role that you play as a spouse, as a child, as a co-worker, as a neighbor. And we will then talk about how you can apply this approach to actually resolving that conflict. Now, there's no way you can escape conflict. That's a given. It's a fact. We may as well accept it. However, doesn't mean that all conflict is bad. It is not. Conflict can be good. Conflict can be a positive force in your life. It can give you that traction and that friction which adds flavor to your life, which adds spice to your life, which makes life interesting and exciting. But at the same time, the conflict can also be very hurtful. It can destroy lives. It can create stress and tension. It can take a very heavy toll in your life. And that is what we are going to be focused on today. That how we can help you deal with those conflicts in such a way that at the very least, if nothing else, you minimize the negative impact. You blunt that sharp edge which could hurt you otherwise. Now, what is the first thing you have to do in order to apply this approach to your conflicts? The first thing is familiarize yourself with these 7C's, which are conciliation, communication, compassion, commitment, concentration, compromise, and culmination. Now, with a smart application of these 7C's, your conflict can be pretty well guaranteed that you will have achieved the best possible outcome under the circumstances. Now understand this. There is no technique, there is no approach which will guarantee a desired outcome. No one can do that. What this approach can do, that given the circumstances, it will give you the best alternative available. Let's take some examples. If your conflict is, as a spouse, you never get help from your spouse in doing the dishes, for example. Or you have a situation where you have asked for the 100th time, honey, what's the matter? And you get a silence treatment. Or you have a dispute with your neighbor, whose dandelion decorated front yard is an eyesore for everybody in the neighborhood. Or you have a problem with the child who is giving you hell and is to be suspended from the school. Or you're a manager and you have an employee who has decided to create a work environment which has made your workplace completely dysfunctional, and you don't know what to do with that. Obviously, none of these conflicts can be resolved in a few minutes. So by all means, contact us for learning about it in depth. What I would like to say in this program, though, will briefly introduce you to how these 7 C's actually interface with the conflict that you are thinking about. While you are thinking about it, remember, you have to be brutally honest, if with nobody else, with yourself. You have to be completely honest about your own role in the conflict. You cannot deceive yourself. You have to accept that responsibility. And with that responsibility, with the conciliation, with accepting what is, you actually start the process on the way to its resolution. Any conflict can be very highly emotionally charged. We can feel very angry on somebody who has purposely decided to give us a hard time. This is what we are thinking. We think that there is that other side, the mean-hearted, mean-spirited person who is just doing it to spite us. The fact is that other person might be thinking exactly the same thing, may have exactly the same feelings about you. That is the time when you have to master the art of communication. When you have to listen for a change. When you have to just make sure that you have some empathy with the person with whom you have a conflict. Because eventually you are going to resolve it with having that person as a partner, not as an adversary. This commitment to resolve the conflict is also extremely important. Conflict is a very emotionally charged phenomenon. Just thinking about someone who is creating an animosity towards you can make you feel very angry. But we have to remember that the other person, your adversary, may be having exactly the same feelings about you. It is at that time when you have to begin to communicate, when you have to listen with empathy so that you understand where that other party is coming from, because eventually that is what is going to help you. After that C of communication comes the C of commitment. You have to ask yourself, are you really committed to a fair resolution of the issue, or you're playing games? You have to be sure that you want a resolution that you can live with. That if the tables were turned, would you have accepted somebody who is behaving like you are behaving? And after that commitment, you have to proceed with some compassion for that other side. You must make sure that you treat the other person as a human being, that you walk in that person's shoe, that you switch places with them and create an environment where you evoke exactly the same feeling in that person as well. You also have to recheck with the conflict that you're thinking about. Are you completely focused on it, or you're being distracted? Because if you're distracted, then peripheral issues will take priority and you will keep your eye off the ball. Make sure that you have your eye on the ball all the time. You must be willing to accommodate. You must not stubbornly insist on having it all. Because whatever the outcome, if you win completely, even if you destroy your adversary, chances are that it will not be a resolution which you will really find very favorable to you, because you will create nothing but resentment. So accommodate to a degree, compromise to a degree where your adversary has something to lose, where they have a stake in the outcome, where they can also live with it, and they think that you have made a fair offer to them. You have acted as their partner, not as an adversary or an enemy. You have helped yourself. You have looked after your best interest by looking after their interest as well. That is the kind of resolution which can last, where you do not lose a relationship, where you do not make it a one-shot deal. It is something that you can continue to maintain a working relationship because you have compromised, because you have accommodated. And lastly, you have to be prepared to put a closure on it. You have to culminate. The last C is culmination. You have to be able to culminate it. You cannot live the rest of your life thinking about that conflict, which has had a very harmful effect on you. You should be willing to move on with your life, to move forward, because nothing is worthy to allow a conflict to impact on your life, which can be so destructive. You're the only one who can put a value on that time. You know how much aggravation you should allow this, even if you find that the other party is not agreeable. The decision still is in your hand. You're the one who will determine that this conflict is not something that you will always take as a negative. It can also be a learning experience which can teach you some wisdom, which can help you enrich your life rather than diminish it. Thank you.